Bishops should not be in front of pawns like that. Your center pawns need to move in chess. You can't block it in. That bishop is trapped in because that bishop's blocking that pawn. Improve the small things in your chess. Don't move a piece 5 times in the opening. And certainly never block your center pawns. That bishop on d3 was not a good piece. My opponent never castled. Huge mistake at low elo. Also move the queen out too early. Also move the bishop 5 times in the opening. I mean, none of this is acceptable. You have to literally do the opposite of all of those things. And quite simply, you won't be 300 if you do that. All right, guys, we're against e4. What are we thinking? What kind of opening do we want to play here? Against e4. All right, let's go for a Sicilian here. I'll go for c5. Start off with the Sicilian, why not? Why not? Great opening. And there are so many to choose from. Even from White's perspective, we could see closed Sicilians, g3 Sicilians, Mora. This might be the only one that doesn't have a name. Kind of amazingly. But guess what? When people play this, a6 is already in our Sicilian repertoire. a6 is... we want to play that move, right? We're waiting. a6. It's like, why would I not use that to kick the bishop? So of course I'm gonna play a6. Of course. Bishop c4. Now, important in this situation, not that it's a blunder, but I'm not that interested in playing a move like this. Now, I'm not calling it a blunder, but it's... you could call it a blunder. What is at least a reason why we wouldn't play b5? Bishop d5 is annoying. You know what? I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. Bishop d5 is hella annoying. Right? Hitting our rook. But there's something else that no one seems to be mentioning. Bishop f7, queen h5, queen d5 check, and queen a8. Now, maybe the queen gets trapped in there. Maybe. But the fact that that is even something that I can potentially see happening, no shot. We're playing e6. We're playing e6. And we're definitely taking away that square from the bishop. We're preparing a potential d5 supported by the pawn. We're also preparing b5 now that bishop d5 is not available. So for many, many reasons, e6 is absolutely the way to continue. A lot of people play e4, and do you know why they play bishop c4? I'll tell you exactly why. It's a really bad opening, but everyone keeps playing it. And I'll tell you why. People play it because against e5, they like to play the Italian. So you've got this group of people that what they do is just they play e4, bishop c4 against everything. It's like it's some universal potion. It's not. So when you see this, you should always stick e6 down their throat. Very, very bothersome. In this case, my opponent played bishop b5 and then bishop c4. So he's playing the same opening that's not very good, plus I have a6. So now we absolutely want to play b5. We're hitting the bishop. Bishop d5 is not possible. If the bishop goes back this way, it's like, why did you bother going here? And then why did you bother going there if you were only going to go to these two squares, right? So what we've got is our opponent moving a bishop 1, 2, 3 times in the opening. Look at these free moves I'm getting. I'll say thank you very much, right? This is good for me. All right, we played b5. If I play c4, the bishop goes back. I don't think that's anything special. I'm going to hang on to that move. Bishop b7. Of course, if my pawns are like this, it's one of the best places to put my bishop. Should I be trying to develop my bishop this way? Of course not. Look at my pawns. They're in the way. It doesn't make sense. when we've got this great long diagonal for that bishop wide open. Wide open. My opponent's thinking, guess what? I actually have a little bit of a threat there in c4 because it would kick the bishop out and then I would take that pawn. So the move b3 by white is actually a pretty good one. I am thinking of the move d5 here, but even before d5, I'm just thinking of development. If I play knight f6, maybe pawn e5, and my knight could go to d5. I'm not too concerned there. Queen f6 to hit the rook, I think it's kind of like a tricky move, but not really that good. Based on the development here and what I see a bishop that after knight c6, I could maybe play knight b4 and take. Because after knight b4, you can't move the bishop again, you're gonna lose a pawn. So I like this move because it controls e5. Now if I play knight c6, e5, I could consider a move like knight g4, putting more pressure on that guy. But guess what? Knight c6, that's where the knight wants to go all the time. It's always gonna be a useful move, and personally, I like that it comes with a threat of knight b4. So that's kind of why I played it. I see c4, and I actually see a little bit of a problem here, if I'm honest. The first problem that I see is with this bishop. But the second problem I see is actually with that rook. Yeah, queen f6, knight c3, b4. That's actually a pin. Queen f6, e5, we just take it. So, surprisingly, there's no way for my opponent to save their rook here without a lot of gymnastics. And I'm not even sure that's going to be enough. So queen f6, as strange as it might look, this is my opponent doing some very odd things in the opening. And after giving me 2 free moves, it's not surprising that he might be running into tactics here. Queen f6, the reason that I'm even thinking about stuff like this is because of a pretty well-known theme that you just can't push these pawns out of the way and leave your rook like that. Very often what will happen is this pawn isn't there, right? If that pawn's off the board, you can imagine it's the exact same trap. Now there isn't even knight c3 to worry about, right? So I've seen this kind of a rook trap where this pawn isn't on the board, because then the knight can't even move out. So in this case, it only works because I have b4, which is the reason I needed to double check it. But yeah, now I have b4 to hit that knight, and I think there are concerns here. My opponent is under fire and goes for this. Look, if the knight moved, I would take the rook. I mean, the bishop can't move because I'll trade the queens, and I'll just bring my queen right back out of there, no problem. So he pushes, which means, look, I've got to play this. Knight takes. Forced move. If we took the knight here, of course we would lose our queen, so not an option. Queen takes e5, hitting the king, and remember, we're still hitting this knight. So I have a couple options here. First option is, do we take this knight? As much as it almost works, like if the knight moves back, maybe there's c2 to win the rook. As much as that looks fancy, I think white can play queen e2 or f4, and it might work, but it's going to be really, really dicey. So that's like my last resort. If I don't see anything else, I might play that. Queen takes e5 is the obvious move. Let's start with that. Queen takes knight, check. If the knight blocks, well, that's a rook for me. If the knight moves here, I mean, yeah, take my pick. If we go here and the king moves, well, that's a free knight. So the only tricky move is queen takes queen e2. Because now if I trade, the knight takes back, and all the pieces are actually safe, which is kind of annoying. So we have a choice here. I like queen e5 for a couple reasons. Queen e5, queen e2. I could then move my queen anywhere on this diagonal, right? And then I'm still attacking the rook, which is very pleasant. Basically, that is a pin, and the pin is not going anywhere as long as I stay on that diagonal. Take check. Start with that. We know this is the first move of our calculation. Yeah, bishop block, king move, nonsense. We're just gonna win the knight. See what he wants to do. I assume he might land on the best move in the position. Remember, there's no time for moves like bishop takes g2. I just don't know where I would slot that move in. I can't not take the free knight on the previous turn and play bishop g2 instead. So now if queen e2, I'm just not going to have time to grab this pawn. And after queen e2, I'm also looking at a really nice looking move, bishop d6. Because if we trade here, there's still a pin that he has to worry about. So I actually see a lot of suggestions from the chat saying bishop takes g2. When did you guys want to play bishop takes g2? I see a lot of bishop g2 suggestions. Like, did you guys want to play it right now instead of taking the piece back? Because remember, if you do this now, and then you take, and queen goes here, you're gonna have to trade queens because your bishop's under attack. Then the knight takes back, and you actually don't win anything. All you won there is a pawn. You don't even get to win a piece anymore. And if you meant it here, then yeah, there's just no time to do it if he played queen e2. He played knight e4. I see a free rook in the corner. I also see bishop takes e4 as quite tempting. I mean, why the heck not? But I guess at the moment I'm not really seeing an issue with this. That looks like a free rook, and I don't see any, like, that doesn't work, right? I have my bishop on f8, covering d6. So, really liking this. Really liking this. I don't know. This looks like a free rook to me. I'm just gonna take it, guys. I don't see a problem. I mean, I have a free knight, but I have a free rook. Rook is more. More is good. Now, in this case, it's like, no matter which one I took, I was gonna have something that they didn't have. If I took a knight, I was gonna have a knight, a piece they didn't have. If I took a rook, I was gonna have a rook they didn't have. Obviously, if it's between those two, I'll take the higher value one. That's no question. Yeah, the thing about taking the knight is that after bishop takes, I can't then go take the rook because my rook would be hanging as well. I think something like castling should be on his mind here. There's none of this. So I'm looking at f5, I'm looking at just simply knight f6 next. Look for more trades. This bishop has been so strong the entire game. Entire game. Queen d4, queen e5. My queen's not going to get trapped in here. White would need to play this, this, and then that. And then that. And that would trap my queen. But that's many moves, so I'm still okay for the moment. Really liking knight f6 here. Like I just mentioned, I think he's a few moves away from trapping my queen, so not overly concerned. Here, queen c2. I mean, I'm looking at queen d4 there. And maybe taking that knight. But is that really the best move objectively? Probably not. knight f6, queen c2, and it's just that if knight e4, not only bishop e4 possible, but I'm also looking at just bishop there, right? And you know, do I need to give my queen back? Probably not. So I think I'm gonna go here and just bring my, just get my queen out. That's the plan. Knight f6. This is not a threat just yet, so using that brief moment to develop a piece and go for more trades. I'm up an entire rook. Trades are always going to benefit me. Always. And the only reason I didn't run away with queen e5, which is a great move and, you know, a good piece of advice to, you know, once you get your goodies, get out safely. But I've just evaluated here that there's no way to play that right away, so I'm always going to have a way out. If white could have two moves, I would be very concerned. But obviously, because this is not a threat, I have nothing to worry about. For this move. For this move. But next turn, I'll have to be careful. What about taking the a2 pawn? No. You've lost your way. This is for sure being too greedy. If you're up a rook, or any significant amount of material, but let's say a rook because that's what's going on in this game. If you're up a rook, guess what? You already have enough material to be completely winning the game, which means you should be developing your pieces, castling, maybe making an escape square so you don't get back ranked, making sure your pieces are all safe. What you should not be doing is taking more pawns or trying to win more things on top of what you've already got. You've already got more than enough. Just, you know, get out with it, you know? Escape with it. You've got more than enough to win. You don't need more. Don't need extra on top of that. That is a very bad habit. Queen f3, great move by him. He's actually threatening knight takes and queen takes bishop. All right. So I think just mass exchange on e4 is the way to go here. We're just going to take, and we're going to take again. And yes, we're going to have to defend our rook, bring it into the middle, but I think that's no problem. So queen takes, hits our rook, but yeah, we'll just save our rook. And we did great there. We got 2 pieces to disappear from the board. My opponent only has 3 pieces, and our queen still has safe squares and this pawn to escape with. All right, d3. And now I think this is absolutely the case where bishop to g5 is, I mean, it's a threat, right? Our queen has to move. Queen d4, d5, f5, probably unnecessary. So I think we're gonna grab this pawn now. I have to move my queen. This is a threat. I could go bishop e7, but like, why live in this? Like, this makes no sense, right? Why leave my queen where bad things could happen? It's time to move the queen. He's forced my issue. Queen, probably gonna leave it there actually. With this queen not on c2, I don't think my queen is getting trapped. Queen takes a2, queen takes b3, next move. Push, 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 push. Bishop e7, castle. That's what I'd like to do. But ultimately, like, I'm just trying to trade pieces. Bishop e7, castle. Those are my objectives here. we'll see how he develops. I think he should try to be as annoying as possible. So staying true to what I just said, like, I'm not interested in playing queen takes pawn before I play moves like this, you know? But the reason I played queen a2 was I had to move my queen. And if I'm going to move it, sure, I'll take material as opposed to not taking it. Bishop g5, he does do it. Pretty good move. I have a couple options. Bishop e7 is great in the sense that it trades a piece, but I would definitely argue that it's maybe not the best because you don't want to have your king, like, it's more important at castle. So I'm definitely going to be playing the move f6 here. Bishop e7 is great. It does work out, but personally, I would rather play bishop e7 and castle. It's just so much safer. This is a case where I'm not that interested in the trade because I would rather have my king be safe. Kingside castle. Like I said, I'm not too interested in winning these pawns, not till I've got my king safe. Once I have my king safe, I'm fine, you know? Anything goes. f4. Well, castling looks like a very good move, but I tell you, in this position, f5 is mighty tempting. Right? f5. Sneakily hitting that bishop on h4. That looks pretty good, I have to say. I'm gonna be up so much material there if he gives it to me for free, and if he goes back, obviously we want another trade. So I think I'm gonna go for it. Why are we watching a 400 rated player? Are you talking about me? Or are you talking about him? Who are you talking about here? I'll accept slander about myself, but certainly not about my opponent. Are you talking about me or my opponent here? All right, I'll take. This is a really cute move by my opponent. It still results in a trade, so I'm still gonna do it. Oh, you didn't even see it, poor guy. Let's castle. Hey, Matt. You are slow in learning. At least you're not slow at learning. Thank you for the raid, Mr. Staples. Shout out to Matt Staples. Appreciate it. That's a big boy raid as well. 500 of you. Welcome, everyone. I'm doing a bit of a slower chess series. I don't usually play rapid games. 15 minutes, 10-second increment. I'm way down the rating ladder right now, but this isn't supposed to be a speed run or anything. These games might be so basic or so beneath me, but I just thought I would do a series where I really go in depth, take it pretty seriously, you know, play a bunch of different openings, talk about the ideas, plans, explanations, and hopefully people learn a thing or two. King h1. Well, doubling the rooks is always a great habit. This bishop is covering a potential mate. It's also covering rook g1. A lot of good things. I think it can, you know, you don't need to look at a 400s game and, you know, judge them. There are still things that you could learn about the way that they play and how you could apply it to your games as well. Or some of the positions we might get could be incredibly interesting or useful. So I think there's still a lot to learn. Yeah, queen here really really looks good. But I'm wondering where our actual checkmate is. I'm not sure that I see it. I mean, lots of good moves, but not sure I see the mate. Obviously, we could trade the queens, but the fact that we still have the queens on the board is definitely making me want to use them somehow. So I think I'm going to give this check just to force the king up, and then I'm going to play rook f6. So now we have this idea, but we also have this, and we also have rook h6 to mate the king on h3. So now I feel like I have a few weapons. Many threats now. This, that. Okay, so we do have rook to g6, which is more than enough. It wins the queen. We definitely want to check for a mate, though. Check. Here. Check. Here. Is there a mate right away? Doesn't look like it, right? Check. Here. Check. Here. Check. Here. And finally, I think we have a mate. But definitely, this looks like the way to start. All right, 1, 2, 3, and 4 looks like a mate. But instead of queen here and king there, the king can run this way. I'm a little more interested in queen here, because I see that the king has a couple options. King here, we do have mate in 1, and king here, we would be able to finish with a pawn checkmate. GG. And a very nice game. I thought he played pretty well. He is a little unfortunate, that opening trap that he kind of fell into there. He definitely played a good one. Right, if we look at the game review here, this was not a good opening. So he played a lot better after his opening. I can't stress enough. I mean, moves like this, moves like bishop c4, very bad against the Sicilian. And you'll see how I handled it. First of all, a6, but a really important next move, e6, right? b5 is just not, b5 is not the right idea. Bishop d5 and maybe bishop f7. I actually think our queen might get trapped in there, so I'm not too sure about that. That bishop d7 move, or bishop f7 move, but I think bishop d5 is enough for me to reject it, right? Bishop d5 is like, e6 is great though. We have d5, we have b5 coming. I like it. Okay, and f3, b5, bishop b7, knight c6, and here, after c4, we can see queen f6. That tactic already makes itself known, right? Knight c3, b4. Yeah, and now, unfortunately, my opponent is just down material, plain and simple. There's not really anything going on here. Now, I will admit, after knight takes e5, knight e5, bishop takes g2 was suggested, and it's like, you know, is the move a total blunder? No, it's not a total blunder. I mean, is it close to the best move? I would say no. Like, you know, based on the evaluations here, I don't think that's anywhere close to the best move. Is it playable? Yes. but our position is so good here. My question is, why do you guys want to complicate your life so much? Your opponent just played this. You're already up a free pawn if you just take it, and you're probably going to win a full piece. It's like, why? You know what I mean? Why complicate your life? Who the hell wants to calculate bishop g2 and like queen e5, like intermezzo? This just looks like a lot. This looks like a lot. Why make your life so complicated? They just gave up a pawn in the center. You took it. They took it. Just take it back. We don't need to be a hero here. All right, we got the black pieces. Let's wait and see the first move. What should we do in response? e4. What are you guys feeling today? All right, all right. I think I saw a lot of Caro-Cans in there. We have done a Sicilian before. It doesn't mean we won't do it again, but for the moment, I'll mix it up. Caro-Can, and I tell you, people love this opening. It's because against e4, e5, people play bishop c4, right? And, you know, against that, I get it, it makes sense, but it doesn't work the other way around. You can't just do it against every single opening. Here, for example, I'm definitely going to play d5. It's going to encourage the pawn to take. And now we have a situation where I have a pawn in the center and I'm gaining time attacking my opponent's bishop. Move like that, I don't think I'm losing any time here. White's bishop has moved twice. I'm going to offer the bishop to trade for what is probably one of my worst pieces. Black wants to go e6 to get this bishop out, and well, that bishop wouldn't look that good with the pawn on e6. So white has now moved the bishop 1, 2, 3 times. 3. That's too much. I'm going to take the center. Both my knights can come out next to support the center pawns. If knight f3, e4 is going to win a piece. And why did I know that was going to happen? Bishops should not be in front of pawns like that. Your center pawns need to move in chess. You can't block it in. That bishop is trapped in because that bishop's blocking that pawn. And of course, knight f3 does walk into this. Even queen e2 to momentarily save it. We just block the e-file and we will win a piece here. But all this was actually born out of the opening. Bishop c4, then bishop b5, then bishop d3, now bishop e2. I'm going to take the knight, and now it's probably bishop takes. You see how many times white has moved the bishop? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 bishop moves. We've only played 8 moves. This is a good reminder. Improve the small things in your chess. Don't move a piece 5 times in the opening. And certainly never block your center pawns. That bishop on d3 was not a good piece. All right, let's defend our pawn. We're going to defend our center pawn. Again, I don't think that's the right move here. It's not a bad move, but I just think there are way more things to do than move the queen. You want to prioritize the rest of your pieces. What would I recommend instead of that move? Probably castling or moving a center pawn. And I mean, it's gotten to the point where my opponent has played this and then moved it straight back to d1. You don't want to move your queen that early. I'm in a castle. Maybe this will remind my opponent to castle. I hope it does. That would be a very good move. You got to get your pieces out. You got to get some pawns in the center. And you got to get your king castled. All right, I'm going to go here. It's aimed directly at your king. Never let pieces do that. This move is needed. Maybe my opponent doesn't know about castling, which is possible. Well, I tell you, bishop b4 is a double check. It's not quite a mate, but it is a double check, which I am going to be doing. Check. Now, he must move his king. The only safe king move is king here. If the rook was on f1 already, notice how this would actually be a checkmate. There's no way that you can block both of these checks. Because the square they intersect on is the square your king is on. So there's no square like here where you can block. Now, although rook e1 looks like a tremendous move, and it is, the move bishop b5 is going to be, I believe, just a little bit more preferable. Bishop b5, check to the king. This move doesn't actually slow us down at all. We're going to take and deliver another check. And, you know, if the bishop blocks, he's going to be losing something there. And if the king goes over, which is what has happened, now when I go rook e1, takes, he doesn't get to take my bishop. So I feel like I've saved some material by doing this. And look, I'm not going easy on people. I'm not, you know, making worse moves than I would normally. I'm not messing around with people. I'm just trying to play the game as cleanly as possible. Because you're only really going to get to see how basic mistakes or beginner mistakes get exposed if I actually take advantage of them. Of course, I could let my opponent kind of get back in the game, but I think it's far less instructive. While this might seem like total domination, it's self-inflicted. My opponent never castled. Huge mistake at low elo. Also moved the queen out too early. Also moved the bishop 5 times in the opening. I mean, none of this is acceptable. You have to literally do the opposite of all of those things. And quite simply, you won't be 300 if you do that. Like, those are easy fixes. Knight d2. Okay, I got a bishop on e1. I have to admit it looks a little bit weird. But he can't develop, like his rooks can't attack my bishop just yet. So I'm actually thinking, you know, maybe what's the rush? I'm gonna keep this bishop for the moment. My next move is very likely knight c6 to continue development and also attack that pawn. g4. So yeah, it does look like the king is gonna get out, but we're not gonna really react too crazy to that move. It is pretty good though, getting the king up. It's the right idea. Is this a Hikaru cosplay stream? Now I know why you might be saying that, Mr. Swift Tickle, but no, it is not. Ha ha. Obviously, it's not a cosplay stream. As you can see, I'm sitting down. Nice try. All right, a4, we're gonna take on d4 here. That was our purpose of our last move. We're hitting that d pawn. Okay. Very close to some checkmates here. Knight e2, king f1. Yes, I can move this knight somewhere and deliver a discover check, but then my bishop will be hanging. So I'm a little more interested in knight takes on g4. Now I'm threatening checkmate in 1, and in fact, even h3 to kick my knight still gets mated. So this looks like a really good move. Knight f3 gets mated. h3 gets mated. f3, guess what? It gets mated. GG. Bishop c4. Not that great, truly. Right? Moving that bishop here, the whole point of the Caro-Kann is to play d5. So already this isn't a good sign. c6, we want d5. Okay. He plays right into it. And then he plays check. Not the worst move, but again, could be better. And then after bishop here, he plays bishop d3, which I really don't like. Now, it's only considered an inaccuracy, according to chess.com. I think this is a blunder because nobody plays bishop here and then on the next move plays a move like c3. C4, A4. I mean, look at these top engine suggestions, right? Or look at another one, bishop E2. No one's gonna play bishop here and then just move it back the very next move. It doesn't make sense. And if that's the case, it's clearly a huge blunder. So what I am saying is that in this case, bishop D3, big time blunder. It just shows that there's a lack of understanding or awareness for the fact that you just never do that. You never block your center pawns because you need to move your center pawns to get your bishops out. So when you see bishops here and here blocking E and D pawns, that's already a sign of mistake, like just plain and simple. So that's a very easy thing to fix. You just never do it. You never do it. Okay, knight f3 was obviously a blunder, but guess what? It's only a blunder because there should not be a bishop here. Sometimes you bring your knight out and you get pushed around by pawns. That happens. But you definitely can't leave a bishop on that square. That's the issue, not the knight. Okay, e4, bishop moves, takes. That's fine. Knight f6, queen e2. Now, I, again, do not like queen e2. Better would be castles. Better would be d4. Better would be even knight c3. Get a piece out. Put your king to safety. Do not develop your queen. Do not move your bishop 5 times in the opening. These are easy fixes. Never move your bishop that many times, or any piece for that matter. Right? Never have your pieces block your center pawns before they've moved at all. Don't develop your queen as, like, you know, the second or third piece of the game. And get your king to safety. These are like very, very basic, like maybe even before habits. My opponent plays d3, decent move. Rook e8. When you see a rook barreling down on your king, it should be an automatic move castle. I'm not sure my opponent knew about the move castling, or maybe they would have done it, because this would be the moment where you absolutely need to castle. d4 played, and now bishop b4 hurts. That's a forced move. Bishop b5. Yeah, I think you pretty much need to go king g1 here. He decides to block, but it doesn't do much. And now you've lost your queen. You only have one piece developed. Knight d2 was actually, there we go. Finally, a good move for my opponent. Getting a piece developed. g4 I even liked to get the king up. But a4 I'm not a fan of. I know it seems silly. Why am I talking about like whether my opponent's moves are good or bad here? But whether or not he's down a queen, you can still show that you have those good instincts. Like if my opponent's playing king g2, it shows me he knows he needs to get his rook out. Right? If he plays the knight, it shows me he knows he needs to get the bishop out. a4 is just wrong kind of energy. Bishop goes back, knight takes another pawn, and then of course the king gets mated because you never castled, lost your queen early, and you didn't get any pieces out. There are only 2 pieces out in the final position. And what have I done? I haven't moved my queen once. So I'm saying, as advice, don't bring your queen out too early. And look at me, following my own advice. I haven't even touched my queen. I'm making all these threats and I'm winning all this material with just my minor pieces and my rook that I won the queen with. You can do a lot with your minor pieces and your rooks, especially early on. The queen comes out early and just gets harassed by these other lower value pieces.